Welcome back, 1570 AM, Baltimore Positive WNST. My next guest is Nestor J. Aparicio. Just came back fresh from the owners' meetings where we heard these 32 owners speak their minds somewhat. Some were cryptic, some were somewhat transparent, but here to tell us all about is Nestor. Welcome in, Nestor.
Hey, how are you?
Doing fantastic. I'm sure we've seen some of the snippets of what the owners said. Steve Bisciotti came out to select few writers and spoke his piece. That way he made sure he wasn't misquoted, which I can appreciate. The media does sometimes slant the truth or tilt the truth, and it's not always accurate. So Steve wanted to make sure he was accurate with what he put out there.
Well, I think what he put out there was the flippancy and the candor that we're accustomed to, which is, some people don't talk about other team signings. And Steve's like listening to sports radio all day and out on Twitter and like,
Right.
well, everybody else is talking about the money I'm going to have to spend on the quarterback.
Sure.
It must be real. And as he said, we'll see.
It was refreshing for me. It was refreshing. We didn't get owner ease or just like you get coach ease sometimes. You got what I thought was the truth. Very, very honest.
That's what you always get from Steve. I think I told you that last week. Yeah. They like to keep him away from people like me because he's so honest.
I'm sure he's very honest.
Boy, he's so honest
that
if you ask him, he will tell you.
He'll tell you.
In fact, I read for the first time in a long time my first chapter on Purple Rain 2, and the quotes of that Billick when he got fired said he reminded me of somebody like myself. Somebody that speaks his mind, somebody that's always going to tell you what's on his mind.
Yep.
And when anybody's asked me about why has Bisciotti not spoken in 5 years, I'd say he probably had too much to say. Politically, socially, he said what he wanted to say about Black Lives Matter 2 years ago, shooting a video, right? That happened after George Floyd. He has spoken his mind. And by the way, Harbaugh's brother was out with Colin Kaepernick holding up jerseys and team captains.
I saw that. I saw that.
Time changes everything, doesn't it?
Apparently. Can't forget Colin's wife and the stuff she posted about Ray Lewis and Steve Bisciotti when the Ravens were seriously thinking about signing the guy.
I think the pig sock thing probably, if you ask Steve would say the pig sock thing probably scared me off.
It scared him, but they were ready to sign him until the girlfriend came out and talk about the Django and the slave owners and this, that, and the other. And I think that killed it. They were ready to sign them from
Steve really doesn't like that kind of talk. Steve does not like being called
of course not. Who would?
Because he earned his money.
But they were ready to sign him. They were. And that tweet blew it for them. You can't unsee that. She did it. He could have been playing with the Ravens way back when.
He's not. And Deshaun Watson is playing and has guaranteed money. And
Steve went around. Steve made no bones about it. Give him a lot of credit for going right after it and calling it exactly what it was. He said, "I'm not sure that this is the first guy in the league you want to guarantee 5 years to," and he's right.
Well, he wouldn't have done it, right? I mean, as an owner, but he's not desperate. And Eric DeCosta wouldn't have done it, and John Harbaugh wouldn't do it because they're not desperate. The Cleveland Browns are a desperate franchise. And, watching everybody parade around for a couple of days, then what do you want to know about the cocktail party? What do you want to know about what Joe Douglas thinks of my hair, or how Mike Tomlin and I, had some tonic water together? And it was I want
to hear your stories. I mean, you hung out with one of the most exclusive clubs in the world. It's a club of 32 billionaires who some are out of touch with reality, some are miscreants, and some are decent people.
Yeah, I mean, I could do the comedy hour with me and Tomlin with you, but I'm going to leave that alone for now in regard to coaches of color and, how difficult they are to find at the pool. You have to look a long time, to find a Mike Tomlin at the pool if you're looking there. Kidding aside, and that's not kidding, there is something about walking around these meetings and finding these really, really, really wealthy people who don't seem to be in touch with the world, in the way or in lockstep with their real fans. I had a great experience with a kid in the hotel. And, there's a lot of milling, right? There's a lot of networking. There's a lot of, oh, there's Mark Davis. He's going to the bathroom. You talk to him. Oh, there's Mr. Kraft. Oh, there's Bill Belichick. He's got the same shirt on he had last year. There's a little bit of that not a little bit, a lot. It's your head's on a swivel when you're at the owners' meetings. You're like, oh, there's Frank Reich. Hey, it looks like Mike Vrabel. Oh my God, that's Mike Tomlin over there. And look, it's Kurt Menefee over there. And there's like all this going on. And I'm in the lobby before the big party on Monday night. And I'm just kind of hanging out. I got my suit jacket on, and there's a good looking kid sitting here. He looks like he's maybe 18, 19. I wouldn't have served him, but I didn't think he was 22, but he wasn't 16 either. And he was just sitting there in his shorts, all wide-eyed, and he didn't have a pass on. He kind of thought he might have been someplace he didn't belong, but he was just hanging in the hallway. He was allowed to be there. And he starts talking to me about my career and where I'm from. And you're a journalist, right? Yeah. He said, I have a podcast. And I said, oh, really? What's your team? He said, I'm a Jets fan. He said, my parents, they just booked rooms at the Breakers. We're on like vacation. I'm here with my family. And like I checked in, and it's just all these football people. So he's just like standing in the lobby.
That's funny.
Just trying to like drink it in and not get thrown out. As he's like, I've seen 10 NFL owners in the last 10 minutes. I just saw Jerry Jones. And I'm like, yeah, man, it's the owners meetings. It's like, it's what it is. But it is a little surreal. I would say to you, the most fun for me are these coaches' breakfasts where you really walk around and listen to everyone and get to know new people. I didn't know anything about Kevin O'Connell. I knew very little about Dennis Allen. I know very little about Matt Rule, or Nick Sirianni, who I would never, if he sat next to me on a plane, he told me he was an NFL coach, I'd have been like, come on, dude.
No, I saw his initial press conference. I get that. Where that would come from.
Well, the Campbell guy from the Lions, who's all fire and vinegar.
Yep.
My favorite, though, is the Vikings coach. And I really enjoyed Brian Dabble. I've seen Brian Dabble speak before as a Bills OC, and he was kind of like going to get a job somewhere. He wound up getting a really good job in New York. And he has an emotional intelligence and a way about him that I thought was good. But I think Kevin O'Connell has become my favorite coach, the Vikings coach.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. I'm going to keep
Why is that? Why do you say that? What do you like about him?
He had a good way about him.
Okay.
I walked around the room. He didn't seem like a macho D-head. He didn't seem like he felt entitled to be there. He seemed like he would treat African-American and women and tall people and short people and skinny people all the same way.
That's good.
He seemed like he had good parents. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what else to say. It just felt like.
All right, so he wasn't full of himself. He was.
So I sat there. Well, the ego and humility that Steve Bisciotti talks a lot about. Talked to me about at length with the book about ego and humility, and he thought that got out of whack with Brian, and it's in whack with John. And he even spoke about John the other day John is a growth person. John
I love that about him. I love the quote when he said, "I don't feel like I'm hiring back the same guy." Which I thought was a very telling statement. He was hiring somebody who was better than the last time he gave him an extension, and I thought that was very telling.
Well, you know what? Marvin Lewis would be that guy too. Marvin was the first guy that said to me the first time he was going to get fired, back in 2008 or whenever it was when Carson Palmer got hurt. Marvin said to me, we don't get dumber, we get smarter.
Yeah,
he's like, I'm
saying that. Yeah.
He's like, if I'm getting fired, I am going to go into the next job smarter. And I've talked to Jim Schwartz about that and other, coaches that you move on and you do get smarter.
You get smarter, but you do have to guard against complacency. And I think that's the thing, right? Guys get there and they feel like they've made it. They've done that. They start riding the gravy train versus putting the time in. And I think that was Bisciotti's remark in regards to the extension for Harbaugh, that he feels like he's hiring a better guy than the last time he and John sat across from each other, which I thought was great.
I'll go back to O'Connell in a minute, but something really interesting about on the slip shot of what you said. I was with Joe Douglas and his wife, who I've known forever, and we're just BSing, and he's having fun with my hair and playing with it because he can't grow his own. And I said to him, I said, how's Flacco doing? He's like, Joe could play till he's 50. And I'm like, really? And I said, I haven't seen him since the Yonda press conference. I said, still got a fire to play? He's like, oh my God. He's like,
really?
He's like, Joe wants to play. Like he flat out said that to me. He's like, no. I've known Joe forever. Joe wants to play.
I never saw that, Joe. That's really amazing to me.
Joe's pissed off for greatness is what he told me. And he said, that's why I have him here.
Yeah, I always thought he was a 9 to 5 quarterback. He never put in a lot of time before or after the job was done. So I'm really surprised in a pleasant way to hear that about Joe. He's always had a cannon arm, but my question was, did he put in enough work to become one of the greatest? And the answer I got was no.
Okay, well, maybe the answer now is he's 36 or
Well,
37 or whatever it is, right?
hey, maybe he realized he can play another 10 years. And then with the money they're paying these days, my God, Nestor, it's incredible.
$3.5 million to back up, right?
The 3.5 million to carry clipboard, that's not a bad gig. But if he aspires to do something great, you never know. He figures
Well,
it out.
well, you would always ask that, right? You say that about John Harbaugh, and where's the fire in the belly, and where was that
Yeah.
that creep in Jacksonville last year that had $100 million in the bank, Urban Meyer?
Yeah.
You know, how does a guy like that get hired who has no interest in really doing the job? But to Kevin O'Connell, just as a guy, I walked around the room because they did 16 press conferences simultaneously. Matt LaFleur was having none of it. He just said, we're all getting up, we're going outside. We're not sitting in here and doing this. So Matt LaFleur took the whole Wisconsin media contingent 5 minutes into the thing outside and said, we'll set up. I'll stay another 15 minutes. We're going to do this the right way. I thought that showed some leadership. John Harbaugh sat down at the mic and said, this is terrible because nobody could hear anything. It was just a really ill-conceived. They don't like the media. The National Football League wants the media to go away. They want us to never show up again. This thing used to be an hour with both sets of coaches. Now it's a half an hour with both sets of coaches. It used to be able to hear it. Used to have breakfast and it was informal and fun. It used to be storytelling. Now it's like this lights are on awful thing. But what I would say is,
are they afraid that the coaches are going to give away national secrets and
I don't know
they're not
what
going to
they're
come
afraid
across
of.
well, protecting the shield? I mean, what is it?
I have no idea what they're afraid of. I really don't. I've tried to figure out, what are you hiding that you can't come out once every 4 years if you're the owner and sit in front of as many reporters as want to sit there and ask questions for 30 minutes. We had a press conference last week with the president where the executive of the team handed out numbers before the press conference began, and I didn't get a number. And Luke said to me, do you want my number? And I'm like, well, where is this, a press conference, or are we in a legal proceeding? What are we doing here? You know, there's the league has unlimited growth, unlimited potential. Why limit the ability to talk about? Because I'm not going to stop talking about it. I'm just going to know less. But I would say this on the coaches walking around the room. I thought, which guy would I hire? You know, if I because you hear all these names of hot coordinators and they 5-6 of them interview. In some cases, they even interview an African-American, Dennis. I know you find that hard to believe in the National Football League, but they do. But they've come up with this group of young white men for the most part. I mean, really, so you go around the room and there's Matt Rule and, like I said, all these guys. Many of them have been trained in the art of soundbite.
Of course.
You know, Brian Billick, my partner, I accuse him of this all the time. I'm like, you speak in sound bites now when you're on camera, and it's not as good as it used to be. It's not as good as the Brian Billick press conferences were back in the day, where Kevin Byrne would wind you up, shove you out the door, and you would just say, my favorite line ever of Billick is, have at it. Here's what I think. Have at it. Have at it. I'd like to hear that. And I got the vibe from a lot of the coaches down there that it is wah, 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 Charlie Brown. Kevin O'Connell sat in front of the media, and I sat in the second row, and he had no idea who I was. I didn't ask any questions, but I was watching him teach, and because he's still so fresh to this. He was a backup to the backup quarterback in 6 organizations. I looked him up. I didn't even know anything about him. He's never called plays. He was a quarterback coach down in D.C. But he was a quarterback at San Diego State, and he fits the suit. He fits the Johnny Bravo 6'5" looking football guy. But he was teaching, and I actually had breakfast with him afterward, and he sat down with his food, and I said, hey, man, I've been doing this 20 years. I'd hire you. And he laughed and he showed his humility, and we had, a go. And I said to him, you had a gift in that room that I hope you keep. And that is trying to make people smarter. You're the coach. You're the teacher. That's the role. We're the students. We're the media. We're asking how, why, when, what. Just teach us and then go home. And if you do that every time, You're going to have a great time with the media. You're going to be well liked, well quoted. And when you don't want to offer information, don't offer it. It's not that this isn't that hard. But the soundbite thing, I said to him, there's no teaching in a soundbite for the most part. There's just the Charlie Brown thing of, I want to get this over with like a root canal and get you out of here. And I said, if that's what you want, that's what you'll get. You'll get that treatment if that's what you want. Belichick's wanted that for 20 years. He gets what he gets, right?
Well, I think that's why when you see Steve Bisciotti, and maybe this is why his access to the media has been limited. I think Steve was the kind of guy that he's going to answer the question. He's not going to beat around the bush. He's not going to give you a sound bite. He's not going to tell you what he thinks you want to hear. Steve's going to answer the question. And then it's up to you and me and the rest of us to decipher the meaning of that answer.
Steve is one of the greatest owners because of that. He was a much better owner in my mind when 1 hour a year he zipped in and sat in front of everybody in Baltimore with the lights on. To me, that is the obligation. That is the obligation. I will not lower the bar on that. That's an obligation that he made and a bar that he said that he's now lowered the bar. So that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable that press conference was held under a tree for a select group of anybody, whether I was selected or not. It should not have been done that way. That is poor. It's poor. But his communication is not poor, but doing it the way he did it and saying to Pete Gilbert and that you can't be involved, that's not really the spirit of a city that lost its franchise for 13 years, that's brought the team back, and saying, well, I'll show up now, it's 4 years later. And I'm sorry, Steve Bisciotti's wrong. And for all the above reasons of my 53 years of sitting here and watching whatever Bennett Williams did, what Eli Jacobs did, what Peter Angelos has not done, that this isn't hard. And it's not left-handed for Steve. He's not socially awkward. He's not some dumbass kid in a room somewhere. He's not some corporation. He does run the organization. The organization does run at his pleasure. All of these people are picked at his pleasure. So therefore, leadership is come up 1 hour a year, even if you don't like it, take the question, say what you say, avoid what you want to avoid. But to me, I'm not going to lower the bar on that. I'm just not. Well, as a ticket holder, as a citizen, as somebody that fought to get the team, as somebody that is a taxpayer, he's gotten a lot of benefits for doing this. Come on, that's not much. I'm not asking to show up at civic events, write big chat. You do all that all you want. Just accountability. Just accountability.
I do think it's a byproduct of success, Nestor. I think when he was fresh as an owner, up and coming as an owner, more involved with the media. But I do think having won a Super Bowl, having been in the playoffs 9 out of 14 years with John Harbaugh, I do think that there's a bit of complacency in that. Doesn't make him a worse owner, but to me, just not paying attention, not having somebody above him saying, "Hey, Steve, look at it this way. Look at it from the fans' point of view. Look at it from Nestor's point of view." So that's where I think the fault lies in him not having the frequency of press conferences that he used to have.
Well, there's been no turmoil around here since Ray Rice, and I think the turmoil really stung. I know it really stung Steve, and everything, the name calling and everything that happened afterward, and Dick Cass and the elevator, and the fact that darkness came upon his franchise and CNN was camped out outside of the castle, and they, that punch kept getting shown again and again and again and again and again, right? So it's been a little while since that. But Steve still owns the franchise, and the franchise is in great shape, and it's still he's still responsible, and that's just a fact.
But again, I can only speculate that they've had some situations, and if you were to ask him a question, maybe he didn't want the answer to be out there. I would love to ask him on his stance when the players were taking knees. There's certain things that I think he won't want
that we've skipped over.
Yeah, he just he'd rather not tell you what he really thought.
See, if I'm sitting there, I'm asking him about Dan Snyder. I'm asking about the marketplace. I'm asking him about jurisprudence. I'm asking him about.
I mean, they lost. You said it a week
ago. Analytics. I'm asking him about all of that, right?
in our last segment, you said about them losing fans, not enough fans at the stadium, right? Those are what does he think contributed to that type of a culture? Has a team been canceled by a segment of the population that used to be PSL
Dennis,
owners? I mean,
Dennis, if you could, if I were taping this, I have this picture that I've shared with you when I have sharing privilege to show what the stadium really looked like on a 65-degree day in January when the team was fighting to make the playoffs against the eventual, world champions. I mean, real fan Dan put this HD picture up, and seats are empty. I was there sitting there, and it's amazing when I say to Moeller, this half the seats are empty. He's like, no, it's 95% full. And I'm like,
no.
Dude, you were a PR director. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than I'm in the stadium every week, right?
I went fishing. I taped the game and I went fishing. Yeah, I'm a rabid Ravens fan. Maybe not as much as I used to be, but I knew it was a great day, a warm day. I went fishing. I taped the game because I can watch the game a lot faster. I can fish. I can reclaim some portion of my life that I've missed in the past by attending football games, by investing my heart and soul in football games.
I'm looking at this picture again right now of it's 1:53 left in the first quarter. The Ravens are winning 7-0 and have the ball on the 24-yard line. The Maryland Lottery's in the frame too, so go Maryland Lottery, let yourself play. And I look at the stands, and there's just a ton of empty seats. Like not 10%, not 20%, not 30%, a ton of empty seats. And this was the issue for the last couple of years. And when you bring it up, the PR side said, we're making more money than we've ever made. We're more popular, we're larger than we've ever been. And I'm thinking to myself,
they are.
Okay, but you still have issues. There's still questions to be asked.
But right, if the stadium was 50,000 versus 71,000, it still wouldn't have been full. But these are the type of things that I want to ask Steve Bisciotti and a few others. But I look.
Well, yeah. What questions would you ask? Let me give me some. Steve walks in right now and says, "Dennis, I'm buying a car. I'll sit in here for 15 minutes." And I know you've been a PSL holder and a ticket holder for years. Tell me about yourself. Do you still go to the games? No, I don't go to the games. You go fishing sometimes. Really? What the hell happened? How did I lose you? Hey, you run a car delership.
Right.
How did you got purple underwear? Your kids had purple underwear. Your wife had everybody got purple. How did we lose you? How can we not have you at our, that's what I want to see. Maybe is your kid into it? Does he have a friend? Does he have a friend's friend? Is he on Instagram? How can we get him down?
Well, the NFL Game Pass for me changed a lot because I can watch that game in 48 minutes flat. If that's with me taking breaks and everything, I can actually do it in 38 minutes, right? So,
man, with a guy with silver hair, as astute as you, knowing your time is your most valuable asset.
It is. I at 58 now, I'm soon to be 58 in a couple of days. I'm reclaiming my time. It's my most. Yeah, I woke up. I had an awakening. Things change, right? So hopefully
I spent
the younger
3 days
generation,
in Florida watching the owner of the team give a press conference to my colleagues from 100 feet away. So you think I don't value, and I left early.
Right,
you think I don't value my time?
Right. we do now. Say fun segment. I'm up against the clock. I got to run, but I really appreciate your time and your insight and your input about what happened at the owners' meetings in Florida.
Hey man, they're going to be a good football team, and I know that much. I spent enough time with John Harbaugh and with Eric DeCosta this week, a lot of time actually, to know that the fire's there in their belly. They want to win, and watching everybody else who wants to win, look at them and say, Mike Tomlin, we're still kicking your ass. So yeah.
Well, it was great to hear Harbaugh say that they feel like they have the most to do out of any team in the AFC North. So to me, if they have that kind of mentality, it's going to pay dividends.
Well, they lost 6 games in a row. I think I said at the beginning that will serve them well at some point because they wake up every day. Kevin Rockless saw him down there selling sponsorships to Coons Ford. They've lost 6 games in a row to end their year. And they have their quarterback not signed, which is something they'd like to have in a box that now is going to cost them $150 million more guaranteed than they thought. So There's a lot that's transpired over the last 2 weeks, a lot.
It really has. It really has. Nestor, again, I appreciate you. Stay well. Keep doing great things.
All right, I'll keep being mouthy before the draft, too.
There he goes. Nestor J. Appreciate here at 1570 a.m. Baltimore Positive WNST will take a quick break and come back right after this.